We're taking a look at charting on page 209, number 2, to create two bar charts. Here's what it's going to look like. Trips per traveler and miles per traveler. Here's trips per traveler in the three areas we're concerned with, 2 different years, 10 years apart. Here's miles per traveler with those same parameters. Now, one of the easiest ways to make a chart is to select an area. I'm going to select this whole area. It's not going to work well, but when you select this whole area and press the F11 key, that is select chart data, press function 11 key. So I'm going to select all this stuff and I'm going to press F11. It's going to insert a chart sheet prior to the data, and it's going to do its best to try to figure out all that stuff from the different pieces. If I turn this on its side and make it a bar chart, there are a lot of things you can change here, but this would be to change the chart type over here. I'm going to make it a bar chart, and notice we've got all that stuff on the same set of axes. You can have a stacked bar where it's all in one bar. Here are clustered bars. You can make it three-dimensional. So I'll just do the clustered bar chart, and notice that is going to be very similar, except it's only showing those Indiana, United States, and it's not showing the visitor thing. So what we could do is, I'm going to trash that sheet, but that just shows you the basic idea. In fact, let me show you something very simple so that you can get the idea of charts. This will give you a good overview. Let's just go ahead and put in some numbers. We're going to say, let's say rent, utilities, other, just very basic. And then let's say January, February, March. And we'll put in some numbers. Hopefully the rent is the same every month. Let's say 600. Okay, utilities are going to change. Let's do 250, 200, 275. And for the other, let's do 800, 823, and 961. All right, so now I am going to select just those things, including the headings, press the F11 key on my keyboard, and it makes this chart. Notice it used the headings that we had. It says here's the color code, rent, utilities, and other are those 3 colors, and then it said these are the figures for January, these are the figures for February, these are the figures for March. How's everybody doing so far? Now notice it automatically put a scale on the value axis. It said, what's the biggest thing here? Well, this is the biggest thing, so it arbitrarily went up to 1,000 and gave one more. But what if we made February's other? By the way, if you hover your mouse on any of these, here's the terminology. These green bars constitute a series of data. Notice it's the series called other. So the green is the other series, and each one of these green bars is a data point. So if you click on any of the green bars, it selects the whole series. So click on any of the green bars, you can see that each one of the green bars has those selection circles around it. Now if you click a second time on one of the bars, now it selects just that data point. I'm going to take the top of that. They used to be able to do that. I don't think they can anymore. But that's that data point, and we could format it, we could add labels to it, all kinds of stuff, or you can do the whole series. Now, these are dynamically linked. If we go back to our data, let's change our February other. Instead of 823, let's make it 1823, add 1,000 to it. Now it's going to be much bigger than that chart even went up to, wasn't it? It went up to 1,200. But if we go back to the chart page, now it has adjusted the axis and said, oh, now we got to go up to 2,000 because we've got a value this big. Here's another thing you can do. Once we make this chart, if we said, I really just want to see the rent and the utilities, we don't have to redo it. We can go back to our data and we can simply hide this column, the March column. So I'm going to right click on column L or wherever you have it, and I'm going to hide that column. With that column hidden, now if I go back to the chart, you see how it works. Now we have only 2 months worth on the chart. Now if I unhide that, by the way, here's a little trick. Sometimes you say, how do I unhide that because I can't get hold of it? Highlight all the columns around that hidden one and then say unhide, and it'll do everything in between those two. That's what I usually do. Let's take this other out of here. I'm going to hide. I don't think you can hide those cells just by themselves. You probably can, but I'll hide the whole row. Now I should have just 2 bars for 3 months worth. And there's 2 bars for 3 months worth. Okay, so these things are dynamically linked and you can format them. There are a lot of things you can do with charts, and frankly, it's almost unending as far as the way you can make them look. If you were measuring manufacturing of computers, you could get a little icon of a computer and have it stack up here where one computer represents 500 somethings or $500. So you can make these things look like $1,000,000. But these are the basic things. And then here's another thing to realize about a chart. Every one of these areas is called something different. Notice this is the chart area. But if I float my mouse over here, it says that's the chart title. If I float my mouse on one of these, this whole thing is the chart area, but once I get inside the values, now I'm in the plot area where it plots the values. If I float my mouse on the vertical axis, I'm on the chart area, but if I go down to a value on the vertical axis, it says, oh, now you're on the vertical axis. That's very important because, as you know, everything has properties. And if you right click on something, if I right click on this, it shows me all the things that I can do to the desktop. If I right click on an Excel file, it says here are all the things you can do with an Excel file. If I right click on the taskbar, it would show me all the things I could do with the taskbar or with the open windows. So when you are in a chart, it's important to float your mouse and make sure you are where you want to be before you right click on it. So here I'm on the vertical axis, and if I right click on it, now I can do things to the vertical axis. If I point to this, this will affect the major grid lines on that axis. As I say, here's a series. If I right click on it, I can format that whole data series, all the blue bars. If I right click on the legend, I can make it look bigger or change the font or that sort of thing. So just be careful. Know that there's a whole bunch of different pieces there, and just float your mouse on it and right click to affect that particular thing.